Looking at the Rambam, at the end of Hilchos Chanukah, the Rambam talks about the greatness of the miracle of Chanukah and the greatness of the lighting of the Chanukah candles. And he says in Perek Daled, Halacha Yud Beis, Mitzvah Ner Chanukah, Mitzvah Chaviva Hi Ad Ma'od. He calls it a very precious mitzvah. V'tzarich Adam lizaher ba kedei lo dia nes, and you have to be very careful about it, to be able to reveal the miracle and to be able to show gratitude to Hashem for all the miracles that Hashem has done for a person. Afilu ein lo maya ochalo min tzedakah. Even if you have no money, you have to borrow the money, or you have to sell your clothes, you should do so in order to get oil to light Chanukah candles. And he goes on and he says in Yud Gimel, Harei she'ein lo ela pruta acha. Let's say you only have a certain amount of money, and you can either buy Neiros Chanukah or Kiddush Hayom. So you buy for Neiros Chanukah. We know you can make Kiddush on bread as well. And the reason for this is, Ha'il v'shnei medivrei sofri mutav lakdim ner Chanukah sheish bo zikaron hanes. You have the aspect of zikaron hanes, the recognition of the miracle. The whole idea of Ner Chanukah is the idea of publicizing the tremendous miracles that Hashem has done for us. And as the Sforim on the Rambam note, that the actual lighting of the Chanukah candles is the Hallel and Hodah. Unlike Rashi, who holds the Hallel and Hodah, is saying Hallel, and Hodah is in the Al-Nisim and Modim and Noda and benching. The Rambam holds the Hallel and Hodah is the lighting itself. It's our ability to express to Hashem the thankfulness, the gratitude for the miracles that Hashem has done for us. So we see that the Ner Chanukah is a mitzvah chaviva hiad ma'od. It's a very precious mitzvah. It's a mitzvah pirsumei nisa. It's a mitzvah publicizing the miracle. It's a mitzvah that we should have zikaron hanes. Remembering the miracle, and remembering the miracles is a form of showing gratitude toward Hashem. With all this in mind, we then have to understand Halacha Yud Daled, and that's going to be our discussion for today. Hayal lefanav ner beito v'ner Chanukah, o ner beito v'kiddush hayom, ner beito kodem. Let's say you only have enough money to light Shabbos candles or Chanukah candles. Which one do you light, right? And obviously the halacha doesn't apply to us today, because Baruch Hashem, we have the means and we have the money to light both. So I understand that this halacha isn't applicable to us, but the learning of the halacha will grant us a deeper understanding into Chanukah as well as Shabbos, which we celebrate every week, as well as what Shabbos Chanukah is about. It will give us a deeper understanding. So if you only have enough money to either buy Chanukah lichts or lichts or candles for Shabbos, which one is first? You light Shabbos candles. You wouldn't light Chanukah candles in such a case. Why? Mishum shalom bayis, because of the idea of shalom bayis, literally peace in the household. Sharei Hashem nimchak lasot shalom ben ish lishto. You see, Hashem's name is erased by the story of the Isha Sota to create peace between husband and wife. Gadol hashalom shekol haTorah nitna lasot shalom ba'olam. Greatest peace that the whole Torah was given in order to make peace in this world. Shenemar dracheha darchei noam v'chol nesivoseh shalom. And that's how the Rambam ends Hilchos Chanukah. So the question we need to understand in this Rambam is twofold. One is, what is this idea of Shalom Bayis, that Shalom Bayis is so important that it overrules Chanukah? And the second question, I'd like to take a look in source number 27, the way Rav Pincus asks it. He says, we know the idea of Pirsumei Nisa, publicizing the miracle, is Gilui Emunah, is revelation of godliness, is Hashgacha v'kirvas Hashem, is Hashem's closeness to us, that He performs miracles, V'u Yesod Ikarei Emunah, and this is the basis of the Emunah. And therefore he says, U'l'chora ein davar gadol mizeh, you can't imagine something greater than this, and publicizing and thanking Hashem for the miracles He's done. V'af al pi chen, nevertheless, Ner Beisol, Ner Shabbos, Adif. Ma difato shel Ner Shabbos, v'keisad yeshna b'chlal adifut al davar shechizuk ikrei emunah. How can you say that anything's greater than this Ikar Emunah? One of the fundamental aspects of faith is to believe in Hashem and to be able to acknowledge this in a very concrete way. How could you say that Shalom Bayis, right, peace in the household, is greater than this fundamental tenet of Judaism, that Ner Shabbos takes precedent over Ner Chanukah. And again, I understand that you may say to me, this is irrelevant, we have both. Baruch Hashem, we have both. Baruch Hashem, we can afford both. But the understanding and the dynamics of the discussion will be very, very crucial for understanding, as we mentioned, what Ner Chanukah is about. So on the most simplistic level, I'm just going to mention this. What is the beauty of Ner Shabbos? This is source number 3. Ner Shabbos is about that if you're sharui b'choshech, if you're in darkness, there's going to be a feeling of, as the Sufos Marachos describes it, huchash tchushat mechanek. You feel like choke, like you don't see things, and you ask to pass this food and that food is passed, and you get aggravated and you trip over things. And technically speaking, Ner Shabbos you're allowed to have hana from the candles, and Ner Chanukah you're not allowed, right? Ein lan rishul ishtamesh b'hem ela l'rosam bilva. So if the importance of Shalom Bayis, that there should be peace in the household, is so important, so Ner Chanukah, I can't utilize it to be able to see what's going on in the house. This is before electricity. So I understand why Ner Shabbos takes precedent, because I'm at least able to use these candles to be able to enjoy Shabbos and not have a frustrating experience. That's very superficial, and obviously there's a tremendous more depth that has to be uncovered. Very beautiful insight of the Sloman Rebbe in the Siva Shalom in source number 4. He says on the phrase hit oreri, awaken, awaken, kiva orech kumi ori. So the Beis Avram explained that orech could be understood as or kaf, the light orech, the light of the 20. Which is a reference to Ner Shabbos, which if it's lit above 20, is kosher. Kumi Ori, Ori is Or Yud. It's the light of the 10. The light of the Ner Chanukah, which is in mitzvahs to light lower than 10 tvachim. And the Shleimus Ha'or, the real completion, the wholeness, is both of them together, Ner Shabbos and Ner Chanukah, and through that you have the end of L'chvod Hashem Alayach Nikla, that the real revelation is both the Hitori Kiva Orech, the Or of the Kaf, the Ner Shabbos, and Kumi Ori, awaken the light of the 10, the light of Chanukah, which is under 10 Tvachim, when you have these together. There's a dimension of the Ner Shabbos, and there's a dimension of the Ner Chanukah, and the two are separate. One, as we saw in the height, right? The Ner Shabbos can be lit very high, and the Ner Chanukah is lit very low. But that distinction in the height has a far greater implication. And that is, as we know, that the Gemara in Shabbos tells us, the squiggly line in 4, that Ptilo v'shmonim shamru chachamim ein madlikim ben b'Shabbos, madlikim behem b'Chanukah, ben b'chol ben b'Shabbos. The wicks that are used for Shabbos are not the same wicks that are used for Chanukah. Let's explain. Rav Wilson in Wellsprings of Faith in source number 5 teaches us, according to Shulchan Aruch, all types of oil and wicks are kosher for the Chanukah menorah, even oils that are not drawn smoothly into the wick, and even wicks that do not maintain a steady flame. This is based on the Gemara that states even oils and wicks that may not be used for Shabbos may be used for Chanukah. When it comes to the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles, we're very restrictive. We insist on a flame that is steady and smooth, and hence only the purest of oils and the finest wicks are acceptable. The standards of Shabbos are very high. Chanukah, in contrast, seems to have no standards whatsoever. Even crude oils that burn with a dim, smoky flame and coarse wicks that flicker and sputter are all acceptable on Chanukah. When the Gemara speaks of oil and wicks, as Fasem has explained, is talking about Jewish neshamas. That the Ner Elokim Nishmas Adam, it's a metaphor for the soul. In fact, nefesh, soul, is really the 3 aspects of the candle. The nun is the Ner, the vessel that holds the oil. The pei is the psila, the wick, and the shin is the shem in the oil. The nefesh is really a corresponding to the soul of man corresponds to the candle of God. And what does this mean? That there are some candles that we can light, any candle you can light on Chanukah, but we're very restrictive of what type of oils and wicks we can use on Shabbos. So symbolically, Rav Wilson continues in source 6. There are some Jews whose souls are filled with light on Shabbos. For them, Shabbos is truly Noam HaNeshamos and Onek HaRuchos Eden HaNefashos, an experience of spiritual bliss. When Shabbos arrives, they feel a sublime light and they're surrounded by an aura of Kedusha. These are neshamos that are lamps that are lit by Shabbos. These neshamos are the oils and wicks that can be kindled for Shabbos. And ideally this should be the experience of each and every one of us. But unfortunately, there are observant people sincerely devoted to mitzvahs, who complain they don't feel anything special on Shabbos. Even at the time, the height of Shabbos, of Sudah Shlishi, which is the closest, most intense time, they're still looking up at the sky or looking at their watch. When is Havdalah? When is Shabbos over? These neshamos are like lamps that the Shabbos is unable to light. They are the oils and wicks that cannot be kindled for Shabbos. The halacha that all types of oil and wicks are acceptable in Chanukah means that even those neshamos that cannot be lit by the Shabbos can be lit by Chanukah. On Chanukah, they can experience the holiness and spiritual illumination they do not find on Shabbos. Chanukah is the experience where every single person can feel close to Hashem. Shabbos is the high level. Shabbos is only a certain amount of oils and wicks can be used. It's certain individuals who feel, Shabbos. But most people don't tap into that Shabbos. But what they can tap into is Chanukah, because Chanukah is all wicks, all oils. The holiness of Shabbos is very lofty, and every soul is capable of this. Chanukah, the asterisk in 7, is different. On Chanukah, we do not have to raise ourselves to a level of holiness. Instead, the holiness of Chanukah comes down to us. Hashem lowers himself, so to speak, to each individual. He brings his holy fire down to kindle even the coarsest wicks, to illuminate even the lowest neshamos with a light that makes it possible for them to do tshuva and to serve Hashem with fiery enthusiasm and great wisdom. All this occurs every Chanukah when we light the menorah. That's why we light the menorah in a low place, under 10 tefachim, about 35 inches. And normally Hashem doesn't come down this low, but here Hashem is coming down to each and every person. Chanukah is about the ability to transcend the usual boundaries of holiness. The light of menorah radiates outwards from the doorway into the Reshut HaRabim, illuminating the darkness and night of the night and reaching down even to the lowest levels. We wear our weekday clothes when we recite Hallel and Al-Anisim. The light of Shabbos comes down to visit us within the darkness of our weekdays. And it's interesting because the idea of Chol, weekdays, right? Shabbos is Kodesh, and we call the profane, the weekdays, Chol, is related to the idea of holy, of sick. And he notes in source 10, in general, a very, very honorable person, a respected person, it's beneath their dignity to go visit somebody of lesser stature, except if it's a mitzvah Bikur Cholim of visiting the sick. On Chanukah, for the mitzvah Bikur Cholim, Kivyachol, the Shechina itself comes down to visit even the lowest souls and brings them the healing and the light of Chanukah. The way the Nesiv Shalom explains it so beautifully in 13 and 14. He says, there are 3 imageries. There's the imagery of Shabbos where Hashem elevates a Jew up and brings them, or a Jew elevates himself and goes up to Hashem's Heichal, to Hashem's palace. Right? And that, by the way, parenthetically explains why we have so much halachas on Shabbos guarding everything we say, do, touch, because we're not in our own homes. We're in Hashem's home. Just like when you enter into a friend's home, you don't start going through their pantry, and you don't start going through their closet and saying, oh, Joe, I like this outfit. This outfit doesn't look so nice. Right? We don't enter into a person's private domain and start going through things and touching whatever we want. We keep our hands to ourselves. We keep our mouth to ourselves, our feet to ourselves. We don't put our feet up on the couch without permission. There's a certain standard we have. Shabbos, we're in Hashem's domain. Our hands don't touch whatever we touch during the week. We don't say things we would say during the week. We're lifted up. We're beamed up into a different domain. That's Shabbos. Yantif, Hashem comes down into our homes. But then there is a third degree, and that is when you're not in your own home, you're in a pit, you're in despair, you're in mud, and then Hashem comes down and extricates you and brings you out. That's Chanukah. Chanukah as Hashem comes down lower than 10 Tvachim. Chanukah as Hashem comes down to where we are and connects to us. Chanukah as Hashem ignites our souls wherever we are, wherever we're holding, and tries to be able for us to feel this light, to feel this closeness. And that's why Chanukah is the end of the Gemar Chatima. It's the end of the judgment period, because Hashem gives us one final chance where He comes so close to us and He connects with us on this deepest level. And that's why the Sichut Bavarat Hashem, Rav Meislish, in source 12 says, we have an Indian brought down in many of the Svarim, that after Adlakas Neiros Chanukah, it's a gewaldic time to daven. There's certain kapitel Tehillim we've spoken about in the past, Vihi Noam, and to save Mizra Shir Chanukah Baila David and Ranu Tzadikim. Certain kapitel Tehillims that are said, that are found in the special books that are on Chanukah. A lot of pamphlets have been made on this. And then it's the time just to sit by the Neiros, the first half hour, and to daven for Ruchnias, for spirituality, to daven for Gashmias, to daven for physicality, daven. As he says, don't stop from asking anything. This is the time to ask. This is the time. Why? Because of what we just said. Hashem is coming down right where we are. This is a time of intensity. This is a time of closeness. This is a time of feeling Hashem's presence. And when you have a Kadosh Baruch Hu as Bikur Cholim, He's visiting you in your dungeon, in your place of darkness, this is a time to be able to connect to Hashem, to talk to Hashem, and to daven for anything you need in Ruchnias and Gashmias. With this in mind, we can now appreciate that the combination of Ner Chanukah and Ner Shabbos and Siva Shalom says in 15 is a Gavalda combination. First, we light Chanukah candles. First, we bring ourselves out of the pit. First, we connect with Hashem down in the depth. And then once we've connected down in the depths, then we can light Shabbos candles and be elevated. Then we can reach a higher level. Shener Chanukah mechaleit Yehudi me'echan shenimsa b'vchinat shebishifleinu zachar lanu. V'aydei yuchlim hem kvar lagia gam l'Shabbos. Through the experience of Chanukah, you can enter into the experience of Shabbos. So we understand now that on Shabbos Chanukah, when I have only to able to light one, the Chanukah experience itself, the lighting of the previous days, have enabled me, the day itself has enabled me to feel on some level, some connection, some light, so that if I have the opportunity of being pulled out, or to be in the Heichal, the Noam of the Kedushas of Shabbos, of the two, we say Chanukah itself has extricated you to a certain degree. All you need now is Shabbos. Light the Shabbos candles, because the Shabbos candles is the goal. To be in the pit and to light in the pit is not the goal. The goal is to be Be'echalul Shel Melech, in the palace of the king, since that's the goal. So this is where we want you to focus. If you have a choice between the two, light the Shabbos candles, because that is where we want to be headed. Perhaps to understand this idea a little bit deeper, that the two, we opt for the Shabbos candles because that's the goal. To understand it a little bit more philosophically, a very, very deep idea of the Asufos Marachos, Rav Goldvich, I think will shed some light on this and shed some light on the idea of that Shabbos in this regard is referred to as Shalom Bayis. He speaks about the concept, and Rav Goldvich is always very deep. In starting 16, it's a very long essay that Mamish cut and paste. L'tava yivakesh nifrad. And here Rabbeinu Yonah speaks about that when you have taiva, when you have desire, it's synonymous with nifrad, with divisiveness. Sin, the desire for sin, pulls people in different directions. And different sins pull you in different ways, and what you want pulls you in different ways, and nothing is you're not moving into one direction. Sometimes I want this pleasure, sometimes I want that pleasure, sometimes I want revenge, sometimes I want honor. It's pulling me in many ways, and that is the nature of what sin is about. Sin was about moving away from Hashem. As soon as you move away from Hashem, you enter into the world of divisiveness. Once you enter into the world of divisiveness, you enter into a world where you're being pulled and betwixt in so many directions, and particularly as a result of the sin, there was a Yitzirah Shel Peirut, a world of divisiveness within ourselves, that our neshama and our guf, the body and soul, which is supposed to work in tandem, the body which was supposed to serve the soul and be there for the soul's needs, and that is why death was not supposed to be in the world originally, because if the body would have served the soul but completely, ultimately the body would have taken on the soul like property, says the Ramchal, and our body would have become, forever. Just like the soul is eternal, the body would have become eternal. What did sin do? Sin, by eating the food, created this divisiveness between body and soul, and now there is not only the level of body, but on the deepest level, a sense of fragmentation, where within ourselves, where the body wants one thing, the soul wants something else. The body wants this pleasure, the soul says, no, you're not allowed to have this pleasure. The body says, but I want it. The soul says, you can't. And our whole lives is about this tug of war, about this feeling of being so fragmented and so divided in who we are. There is, however, the vision of the future of Bayamahuya Hashem Echad U'Shemo Echad. In the end of days, there's going to be God is one, and His name is going to be one. B'Ketz Hayamim Tashuv Achduto Barach Liot Shareret B'Skalia. In the future, the oneness of God is going to be apparent, and that oneness of God doesn't only mean that God's name is going to be one. It means that we, who are created in the image of God, are going to have that ability to unify ourselves after the will of God, and we are going to, instead of living in this fragmented world, live in this world of wholeness. The taste of that future world, we have what we call me'ein olam haba, the taste of, the part of olam haba in the world that we call Shabbos. Shabbos is known as the world of Achdus, the world of oneness. Atah echad v'shimcha echad. The whole mincha of Shabbos is about the echad, the achdus, that vision that we have of the future world which we taste on Shabbos. And that helps us explain what Rashi says. What is our neshama Yisera 20? It's rochav leiv l'menucha l'simcha v'lio patuch l'rvacha v'yochav v'yishteh v'nafsho katzalav. You know what neshama Yisera is? That you're able to have an expansiveness of the body, that you can able to eat and drink and enjoy this world, and it won't disgust you. It'll be something that you will embrace. Shabbos is about when body and soul can work in tandem together. And that's the idea of what Shalom Bayis is about. That the Kedusha of Shabbos is about returning back to the state of Adam Harishon before he sinned. The dot in 21, V'ha-Shabbos Shabbat, Umatila shalom bayit ba'adam ve'olam, umishabah shalom shava guf lashlim pegidat hanefesh. The shalom bayit on Shabbos is not just what we spoke about technically, that you have light in order to be able to make sure you don't get around. What would the shalom bayit be now when I have electricity and I don't have a Shabbos candle? So obviously the candles should be in a place lit where I can use their light, which has halachic ramifications, not for today. But it's at a deeper level as well. The shalom bayis of Shabbos is our ability to be able to work in tandem, body and soul. That's the ultimate shalom bayis, that I, within me, have this shalom, have this completeness, have this wholeness within myself, that I'm able to experience the physical world as a medium of the spiritual world. One other nekuda that the Asufos Marachos brings down here, which is very fascinating before we bring it into Shabbos Chanukah as a completion of our first level, is the idea that Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, returned back to the level of Adam HaRishon, returned back to that level of tremendous unity, right? Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar ki ish echad b'leiv echad. They returned back to that unity when they got to Torah at Har Sinai. And we know, Paska Zumasam, the negative effects of the sin of the Garden of Eden was removed from them, and they too were going to live forever. And they had no shechachah. They had the Torah Shechsav, the Torah Shebaal Peh, the written law and the oral law, both on the luchos, and whatever they learned, they didn't forget. That was the perfected world. What happened to those luchos? They were broken. Where were they put? They were put into the Aron Kodesh, into the Aron, into the Ark, and with the second luchos, and the second luchos represent just the Torah Shechsav, the written Torah, and the oral Torah is a tradition that we learn, and it's through struggle, and it's through hard work, and it's through forgetting, and it's through relearning, and it's through a tremendous amount of effort. So asked Rav Goldvich, what was the point of having the Shivrei Luchos, the broken Luchos in the Aron? We know that the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the asterisks in 23, Lo No'ad L'Shamesh Kli Ichsun L'Maskarot Historia, that the Kodesh HaKadoshim was not a place of a museum of historical artifacts. Obviously, if we have the Shivrei Luchos, the broken Luchos, they have to have a purpose. And he says that the Shivrei Luchos, the broken Luchos, almost fed and give energy to the second luchos. That our ability to be able to struggle in Torah and to be able to be successful in learning Hashem's Torah and being able to remember it, even though we have to work hard at it, comes from the ideal state of the first luchos. The first luchos, which will once again be one and unified and whole again when Mashiach comes. But it is the fuel, the understanding, that perfected level, that the imperfect level is able to gain its energy from the perfect level. And he says this is really what Shabbos is about. Shabbos is 25, Kviya v'kayama misheshimei breishi. Shabbos comes from Hashem. It's the or of above, it's the light of above without anything that we have to do. Shabbos comes every 7 days. It has that light, we'll talk about, of creation, that light of clarity. The Ner Chanukah, on the other hand, is the candle, and Ner Shabbos would represent the Torah Shevachsav, the written Torah. It's a Torah Hashem gave us. Ner Chanukah is a Torah Shebaal Peh, and we know, this is a separate discussion as well, but a lot to be said, that the quintessential model of Torah Shebaal Peh comes from the laws of Chanukah, right? And it's in this section that we learn, well, how do I know that I should light Chanukah candles? Because of the mitzvah of lo tasur. You shouldn't deviate from what the rabbis tell you, right or left. This is the model of mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, the laws of our rabbis. The whole idea of the menorah, which is chokhmah, which is wisdom, represents this Torah Shebaal Peh, which represents this oral tradition. And that's why Orgadayahu speaks about this, the difference between Moshe, who's the written Torah, and Aaron, who's the oral tradition, the Kohanim, the Levim, who served to learn and to teach Torah, and that was the dynamics between them, and that's why Aaron gets the menorah. There's a lot of Torah on this. Again, not for today, just to touch on it, tap into it. So Ner Chanukah represents the Torah Shebaal Peh. Ner Chanukah represents the world of struggle. Ner Chanukah represents the second luchos. Ner Chanukah represents the idea where we have to be able to overcome the darkness, overcome the aspect of forgetting, and be able within this darkness to have the Persumei Nisa, to have the publicizing the miracle, to be able to find the light within the darkness, to be able to find the light within the struggle. The Shabbos candles represent the broken luchos in the Aron. That's the perfected state. The Chanukah candles represents the struggle that we have to be able to try to get to a place of holiness. And therefore, when we're talking about, I only have enough money for Ner Shabbos or Ner Chanukah, which one do I light? It's back to what we said. We light the perfected state. The Ner Chanukah is striving to get to the Ner Shabbos. The Torah Shebaal Peh is gaining its strength from those broken luchos, but it wants to reach that level. It wants to get back to the level of the first luchos, to get back to the level of the perfected state before Adam sinned. It wants to get back to or return to the level of Adam Arishon Lasi Lavo. The Shabbos represents, the Shalom Bayis represents that perfected state where I am in sync, in my life, in my Torah, in my Avodas Hashem. That Shabbos. Chanukah is about struggle. When we read the Alanisim and we read about Rabim Biyad Ma'atim, Giborim Biyad Chaloshim, we read about the strong in the hands of the weak, we read about all this struggle. It's not only a struggle of the war at that time between the Hashmonaim and the Yavanim, the Greeks and the Jews. It's an inner struggle within ourselves. It's the struggle of the strong and the weak. It's a struggle, are we going to be able to overcome in our own lives our brokenness, our disparity, our pieces in order to reach a level of Shalom Bayis, a level of peace, that we would have the wholeness in serving Hashem. And that's why, as just to round out this first topic, the Chanukah lich that we light can be of any oil, of any wicks, and we said sometimes a very coarse, and you barely get a light out of it. That, and Shabbos has to be that you can light it, it'll immediately light and have a beautiful fire to it, and you hear it crackling, and you say, is it going to burn, is it not going to burn? Please let it burn. That's the fire and the wicks and oil of struggle, of contention, of challenge, of difficulty. It's a world that's not full of Shalom Bayis. It doesn't have that inner peace. It's a world of struggle. It's the light of Chanukah in the darkness of Galus, in the darkness of the exile. It's the light of Galus that we light at the entrance of our home, at the entrance of our heart, where we understand that we are in a place of tremendous struggle, of light versus dark, of body versus soul. This is the whole struggle of what Chanukah is about. When we light the Chanukah candles and the Shabbos candles, we have almost that guide, that help to be able to achieve this. Our Chanukah candles first reminds us of the world of struggle. The Shabbos candles reminds us of where we are headed. If I only have one of the two, I like the perfected state of where I'm headed. Because every Jew needs to have that vision of the Shivrei Luchos, the broken Luchos, in their mind. That I'm not going to stay on a level of Chanukah my whole life. I'm going to Shalom Bayis, Dracheh, Darchei Noam, V'chol Nesivos says, Shalom, as the Rambam ends. That's the goal. The goal is the goal of Torah, of a unity within myself, a wholeness within myself, of connection to Hashem. So my friends, on the first level, what Chanukah represents for us, because that's what we're really interested in, not so much near Shabbos, Chanukah represents to us, when we light those Chanukah candles, we look at those wicks, and when it doesn't catch right away, even though we try to use the finest oils and the finest wicks, etc., but when it doesn't catch right away, or when it sputters a bit, use that as a inspiration. Chanukah candles are me. They're my world of struggle. They're my fight of good versus bad, dark versus light, the many versus the few, those different forces within me. And Chanukah is about to take this light and be able to utilize it, to be able to reach the Shabbos licht, to be able to use this struggle to reach the light of Shabbos, which is the light of wholeness, the light of Shalom Bayis, the light of unity. And recognize that our job is Ela L'Rosam Bilvad. We're not allowed to use them, we're allowed to stare at them. And the staring at them is the introspection of looking at, of mirroring our soul and the struggle of our soul, and allowing that feeling of Hashem coming down so close to us, lighting at the entrance to our home, the entrance to our heart, really, that Hashem is knocking on our door to let Him in, to help with the struggle, the siyata d'shmaya, that we can be successful in allowing some of our pieces to reach levels of peace, of harmony, that the Chanukah experience is the experience of taking the brokenness and to try to create the wholeness, to take the miraculous and be able to apply that to our lives, that we too have the ability to overcome. We too have the ability to surge forward and to reach that level, the goal of Shalom Bayis, of the wholeness, of the perfected state. Arachti ner l'mashichai. The Chanukah candles are a preparation for the times of Mashiach. The more I struggle, the more I am getting ourselves ready for that perfected time of wholeness. That, my friends, is level number 1. Level number 2, which again has 2 parts like level number 1, is a very, very beautiful essay of Rav Pincus, Gamke Hashem B'choshech Hashem Orli, in his Chuntris on Chanukah. And he notes that very famous idea we've spoken about many times, that when Hashem originally created the world, there was a tremendous light, a light of clarity that man was able to see from one end of the world to the other. Hashem foresaw all the generations that were going to abuse that light, and he hid that light, Eleganzol Tzadikim Lasi Lavo, for the future, and that light we call the Or HaGanuz, the hidden light. Says Rav Pincus, that hidden light, Ubizman Amoed Hu Parei Tzachutzo Meir Be'or Yikarut and Nishvas Adam. On every Yantif, that light bursts forth, and that's why we call it Yamim Tovim, good days. The goodness is referring to Vayar Elokim et Ha'or Kitov, and God saw the light that it was good. The rest of the year is hidden in the Torah. So explains Rav Pincus, when we talk about that Yantif has this light, and the rest of the year it's hidden in the Torah, he says really the essence of a Yantif is the Torah of that Yantif. It's almost like the light square. You have the light on the Yantif, and the way to access that light is through learning about that Yantif, because the Or HaGanuz, the Mefarshim say that hidden light was hidden in Torah. And that's why Rav Pincus points out that every Yantif has its own Masechet. You have Masechet Pesachim dealing with Pesach. You have Masechet Sukkah dealing with Sukkah. Masechet Megillah dealing with Purim. Masechet Yuma dealing with Yom Kippur. Masechet Rosh Hashanah dealing with Rosh Hashanah. Even Masechet Shavuos, he said, is connected to the holiday of Shavuos. The one exception is Chanukah. Chanukah is found in the Perek of Bameh Madlikin in Shabbos. So he says that if Chanukah is found in the Masechet of Shabbos, there must be some intrinsic connection that Chanukah is connected inherently with Shabbos. What's the connection? So he notes on the next page that Shabbos is the idea of Shvita, of being able to step back, and when Shabbos comes, Hakol Batel Muvutal Klapeh, everything steps back. When Shabbos comes in, the Mishtaneh Seder Hanagah, Hakol Muvutal, the whole world changes. We recognize that there is no other reality, Elot Fodo Hashem Yitbarach, but Hashem's will. And that's the whole idea of the Lamatat Malacha, which is about creation. Kol Malacha Shal Yada Nivneh Haolam Nesra B'Shabbat. Anything that the world was created with, you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Because on Shabbos, Haolam Kulo Bato Mavutal. There's as if there's no world on Shabbos. It's only Kadosh Baruch Hu that exists on Shabbos. And he says, the idea of this world, if Shabbos is Me'ein Olam Haba, is about the next world, the idea of this world is Vemunat Chaba Leilos, that this world is connected to Laila, Tashet Choshech Ve'Laila Bo, Timos Kol Chayato Yar. It's the time when the wild animals go out into the forests. What does this mean? So he says the difference between light and dark is not it's not that when it's light, something exists, and when it's dark, it doesn't exist. My friends, you take the same room, and in the middle of the day, and there's no electric light in the room. In the middle of the day, you can look around the room with Simcha Rabbah. Once it becomes dark, and there's no light in the room, you trip over everything. Did anything change in the room? No. What changed was your ability to see. And the same thing holds true with our world. There's only one reality in our world. Ein od milvado. It's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it's light, when I have Shabbos, which is Me'ein Olam Haba, which is this clarity of vision, I understand what this world is all about. And that's why Shabbos Kodesh, the dot in 29, Yechneserim Halakad Ner, is entered into with lighting candles. Because when the light of the candle comes on, Lepeta Mu'arako, suddenly you see everything, and you realize the truth about everything in this world, and you understand why everything is found here. You enter into the work week, you enter into the chol, and then suddenly everything becomes dark, and there's no clarity, and you don't understand why things are here. Let's take a look at the way Rabbi Strikoff summarizes this essay in 31. Again, he says, why is it that Chanukah specifically discussed in the Gemara Masechet Shabbos? When comparing Shabbos to the other 6 days of the week, the apparent contrast cannot be starker. Shabbos is a time of holiness and light. while the weekdays are a time of mundanity and darkness. Shabbos is filled with light because after working for an entire week, the quiet peace and rest that comes with Shabbos brings light and clarity to our minds, giving us the ability to perceive and focus on Hashem much more easily than during the weekdays. This light is unmistakably symbolized both physically and spiritually by lighting the Shabbos candles at the onset of Shabbos. By stopping our work for one day and stepping out of the hecticness of life, we are availed of the time and opportunity to think about the concept of Ein Od Milvado. There's no other than Hashem who's running the world. This, in the arrow in 31, is the essence of Shabbos. With the clarity of mind attained at Shabbos, we can see through the fog of this world and observe that it's not our work, which we focused on all week, that is bringing our sustenance, but rather it's Hashem, who is the source of all sustenance. This way, at least once a week, we come to internalize the idea that Hashem, the sole provider, is always there providing for us. It reaffirms our faith in Him in the weekly, and through it, we experience an uplifting feeling of closeness. But what happens? Shabbos ends. It may seem like the rug is pulled out from underneath us. Ben or l'choshech. We're plunged into, from the heights of light, ben or l'choshech, to darkness. And the clarity gained on Shabbos dissipates as we become once again engrossed in the hecticness of life. That is the challenge. Shabbos is about light. Shabbos is about clarity. Shabbos, I understand so clearly my whole parnasa comes from Hashem. Shabbos, I understand so clearly why things happen. It's that light of Mein Olam Haba. And then comes the week, and I'm thrown into darkness. That is until Chanukah. The light of Chanukah is symbolized by the Chanukah candles. The asterisk in 32 comes once a year, specifically during the murky fog of the week, to teach us how to bring the light, clarity, and lessons of Shabbos into the dark, mundane weekdays. Like Shabbos, Chanukah's essence is to reaffirm our faith in Hashem, but in contrast to the weekdays. To this end, but in the context of the weekdays, rather. To this end, there are no work restrictions on Chanukah, so we can experience Chanukah simultaneously with the activities of our workday lives. Chanukah shows us how to find Hashem in these days and how to elevate them so that, just like Shabbos, they too contain a constant awareness of Hashem. Since Chanukah quintessentially brings the power of Shabbos into the week, it is a chelek of Shabbos. That is why Chanukah is not only discussed and analyzed specifically within the pages of Shabbos, but why it's found within the chapter Bamed Leaking, dealing with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. As we see, the lights of Chanukah are themselves a part of the lights of Shabbos. And that explains our original question. Mitam zeh. For this reason, we understand that if we have a choice of Shabbos and Chanukah, on Shabbos itself, we light the Shabbos candles, because Shabbos and Chanukah are really one and the same. Shabbos and Chanukah are both teaching us Ein Od Milvado. There is no other reality but Hashem. And we spoke about this last weekend. In the past, the Yavanim were into the world of Teva, into the world of nature. What you can see, what you can feel is the reality. That's it. Leave Hashem out of the picture. And that's why one of the things that the Yavanim were very much against, and they had a proclamation against, was keeping Shabbos. Shabbos is about our connection to the divine. Shabbos is about our connection to wholeness. Shabbos is about our connection to the realization that this world is a world of wholeness. The fact that we think we live in a world of diversity, the fact that we think we live in a world of shattered pieces and we don't understand why this happens and why that happens, and God, how could you have done this? How could you have done that? That's because we live in a world of darkness. Shabbos gives us a sense to be able to see the picture as wholeness. That's why Shabbos, as Siftei Chaim notes in his third chelek, we focus in on the Birkas Kriyat Shema of Hakol Yaducha, Hakol Yishabchucha, Hakol, the idea of Yotzer Kol, seeing the wholeness on Shabbos, not just the pieces. Shabbos is Shalom Bayis. Shalom Bayis is Shleimus, the wholeness of the Bayit, of the world. Shabbos, you're able to see the entire picture. It's Me'ein Olam Haba. And we know right before a person dies, they have a vision where their entire life comes before them and everything suddenly makes sense. They see the whole puzzle piece. We live puzzle by puzzle, thousands of pieces, we don't understand it. Shabbos and Me'ein Olam Haba, our Neshama Yisera, is that perfect puzzle piece of Up in Shamayim, that picture on the box that comes down to help us with our puzzle pieces down here. It's that shleimus, it's that wholeness. that comes down on Shabbos. So if you have a Shabbos and a Chanukah candles, which you light, obviously you light Shabbos candles, because Shabbos candles is what Chanukah candles are about. Chanukah candles are a chele, are a part of Shabbos candles. Hence, there's no separate Masechet on Chanukah. It's part of Shabbos. It's part of Amen Maliki. It's part of lighting the Shabbos candles. The Shabbos candles is the perfected way we should live. It's that clarity. It's entering to Shabbos with light, the light of clarity, where I understand why I'm here in this world. The challenge and the beauty of life is, how do I inculcate that reality into my everyday? How do I take Shabbos and live Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that way? That's what Chanukah comes to teach. Chanukah, which is an 8-day holiday, is l'mala min hateva. It's above the natural order. It's the ability to take the 7 days and turn it into 8. It's the ability to take the week and turn it into l'mala min hateva, above the natural. It's the ability for us on Chanukah to look at that candle and to be able to be inspired by those candles, to realize there's far more in this world than meets the eye. Utilize the right lens, have the right light, and if you have the right light, you're able to see the world in the correct manner. The lights of Chanukah candles are unable to be used elolarosan bilva, to look at them, and to look at them means to internalize the reality that Hashem is running the world exactly the way it needs to be run. Be able to realize Ein Od Milvado, there's no one except for Hashem. That's the Persume Nisa. That's the publicizing of the miracle of Ein Od Milvado. That is the godless of what Chanukah is about. And that's why Rav Pincus notes in 36, Avodas Hadlaka Shel Ner Chanukah Hi Lachnisat Ner Shabbos. The challenge of Chanukah is to take the light of Shabbos, L'toch Reshut HaRabim Shel Adam, into our lives, to be able to change the Surat Chaya Makatzeh from one extreme to the other, to be able to live with Hashem within our lives in this world. And how do we do that? By not sitting in darkness, by being able to light the lights, to feel that Hashem is with me, and if Hashem is with me, I am not missing anything. The lights of the candles, as we spoke about in the first level, the candles of my challenge, of my brokenness, of the darkness of Golus. But when I realize that Hashem is with me, and He's lighting my light, Gam Keshe Bechoshech Hashem Orli, the Pasuk Amicha, even when I sit in darkness, Hashem is with me. I don't have to worry. I don't have to be afraid. I know that my life is being tailor-made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we light the lights of candles, it's a time of Halal and Hodaya, to sing to Hashem. What does this mean, he says? The Shira in 36, the Astra, the Ani, the Anochi, the I is always sad, because it never feels that it's reaching its goal. It feels it's living a life of Sheker, because it's in a world of darkness, of depression. On Chanukah, when we light the light, our soul's able to see that Chikom Amtakim Vekulo Machmadim, the beauty of this world. We're able to see how everything fits into a larger pattern. We're able to see that there's a higher dimension to this world, and that calls for Lahalo Lahaldos, to be able to thank Hashem. And our job is 37, the Lekach Alibuv. Sheyesh Bichol Adam B'Yamim Elu La'ir B'nei Rotav. We have the ability through our candles, Shemadlikim Or L'Mala Mi Hateva, above the natural world, and be able to see within the natural world the revelation of godliness, and to be able to be Mekadesh et Shmo Ba'olam, to sanctify God's name in this world. When you have Shabbos and Chanukah together, it is the strongest combination. It's the Or of Kodesh Kodashim, that there is no one else in this world running the world but Hashem. And with Chanukah, Lachadir Hamunah L'toch Halev, to be connected with this L'mala Min Hateva. So just to summarize what we've seen and take this level one step deeper. If on the first level, Chanukah is about recognizing that we're in a world of struggle, we're in the world of Torah Shabbat Peh, the world of Derabanan, we want to reach the level of the Torah Shabbat, the level of Shabbos, the level of before Adam sinned, the level of Achdus, of oneness, when we live in a world of Peirud, of disunity, pieces for peace. And that's why Shabbos would override Chanukah, because Chanukah is just the process, it's a she'ifa to get to the goal of Shabbos, which is Shalom Bayis, which is be able to live in wholeness, in perfection. Chanukah is about struggle. Shabbos is in that pit, and Shabbos is Be'echolol Shamelech, in the palace of the king. On the second level, dynamics of Shabbos and Chanukah is that they're really one and the same. They have the same theme, and that's why the laws of Chanukah are found in the Masechet of Shabbos, in the Perek about Mamlikin, with what oils do you light. It's about Einod Mavado. It's about the light being able to tell me with clarity that I don't have to live in a world of darkness, bumping into everything. Why is that chair there? Who put that here? What's going on here? But when you're able to turn on the light, you see that everything has a place. You see everything is balanced. When you live in darkness and you bump into everything, you wonder why things are where they are. Shabbos is about having that clarity. Chanukah, Lamala Minateva, the 8 days, is to put that reality into our lives, to be able to sing that Shira to Hashem, that everything makes sense. What enables us to do this, both on Chanukah and Shabbos? That is that light. And as we know, Rav writes 38, this light comes from the Or Haganos, the Baal HaRokech, who says that the light of the Or Haganos, this original light, was around for 36 hours. 12 hours on Erev Shabbos and 26 hours, 24 hours on Shabbos, 36. And he says, Im Kain, Niresh Ner Chanukah, we light 36 candles on Chanukah, are from the Or Haganos, V'umeya mitoch ha'choshech ha'gadol, and it lights us up in this dark world, that we have the ability to see from one end of the world to the other. Shein Helam v'hester omei neged or there's no darkness and concealment against this light, because our world is called the world of Teva, the world of nature, which blocks this light. But the Orishon is Meir b'chol eila hastaro. The world of nature is able, the world of the candles is able to break through that, and you're able to get to the core. You're able to get to the essence, and you're not able to actually not only to see the essence, but to live by it. You know, Rabbi Krohn, in his latest book, Magid at the Podium, I believe, has a wonderful Maisa, where he tells of a person who had a son who was very short, and was born prematurely, and was always debating, do we give these trial drugs, these growth hormones to have the child grow? And they went from doctor to doctor. There were pros and cons and side effects. Was it worth it or not? So he tells that they went to, I believe it was one endocrinologist, not Jewish, at Mount Sinai. And she goes through all the reports and all the tests, and she says there's a tzad this way and tzad that way. There's, you can weigh it either way. So the parents looked at her and said, if this was your son, what would you do? Right? That's always a tough question to ask a doctor. And she started to tear, and she said, I can't answer that question for you. She says, because if it were my son, and I come from Scarsdale, some of you are familiar with, very wealthy area, everything's judged on the external of a person. And I would have to give this growth hormone to my son, because he'd be judged on his physical appearance only. But she says, you Jewish people, are people who believe in the pnimius, in the internal world. And in the internal world, it doesn't matter how the child looks as much as who the child is. And in this world, I don't think you have to give your child this growth hormone. What a powerful story. That's Chanukah. Chanukah is moving away from all the chitzonius, all the external worlds that we are trapped in all year, to get to the core. That's the Or Haganos, that's the light of creation. That is the ability to see the pnimius, the essence of what this world is about. Ha'am ha'ochim b'choshech ra'ur or gadol. The pasuk in Yeshaya, the nation that was walking in darkness suddenly sees light. And that's the light of Chanukah, the light of being able to have that clarity of that Or Haganos, of that original light. And as the Orchos Aron, Rav Aram and Carlene points out in source 40, even if you don't think you see this light, believing that this light is there is akin to seeing it. He says, just like we invite the Ushpisin in, and we don't necessarily see the Ushpisin, believe that there is this light. And he says in 41a that this Or Haganos is the Or HaChachma, Or Hadat. It's the light of wisdom, it's the light of understanding. And that's what it means, Gandul Sadikim Lasi Lavo. Lasi Lavo means not only in the future, it means during the different generations the Tzaddikim are able to tap into this light. It's there. Chanukah is the light of introspection. Chanukah is the light. When we look at those candles, we have insight into the depth of this world, of what's really important, that we're able to move beyond the chitzonius of how tall a person is into the pnimius of who the person is at their core, what makes a person who they are, what makes the world the way it is, to be able to see that Hashem is running this world with tremendous precision, with tremendous hashgacha prati, to feel that. But you know what, my friends? This Or Haganus that we have on Chanukah, we have every Shabbos Kodesh as well. And in fact, he brings down the Sichot Chaskot in 42. Rabbi Elimelech, every Erev Shabbos Kodesh, would walk around with his ears over his hands over his ears, because he couldn't stand all the energy that was in the air from the Or Haganus that already starts 12 hours on Friday. He was able to sense that every Erev Shabbos we have this Or Haganus. Remember, a woman lights the Shabbos candles every week. And he brings down the Ariya Kadosh that during every week of the year, the husbands prepare the candles, the woman lights them. On Chanukah, it's the exact opposite, and we light it inside. On Chanukah, the woman prepares the candles very often, and the husband lights them on the outside. But the dynamics are the same. Every Erev Shabbos, when a woman lights the candles, the Medrash Tanchuma says she brought darkness into the world by darkening the light of God, Adam Arishon, and therefore she has to light the candles. She darkened this Or Haganus, this very powerful light to some extent. And we therefore relight that Or Haganus every Shabbos Kodesh. So therefore, if we have the Or Haganus to some extent, and the Sichot Chaskot says that really the Or Haganus of Shabbos comes from our Chanukah. There is this interrelationship. We fuel the Or Haganus, it's at its height on Chanukah, and we have sparks of it of every Shabbos. It's hard to tap into it. It's there. You have to be on the level of tzaddikim to really see it. On Chanukah, even the lowest people see the Or Haganus. On Shabbos, as we spoke about, only those on those higher level wicks are able to see it on Shabbos. But Chanukah fuels to a certain degree the Or Haganus on Shabbos, because Chanukah, no matter who you are and what you are, you tap into the godless of the Or Haganus. So on the second level, if I have Shabbos candles, I have Chanukah candles. Which one do I light? Both of them are proclaiming the greatness of Hashem. Both of them are about Ikrei Hamunah, about the fundamentals of faith, of seeing Hashem, that Einod Milvato, there's no one but Hashem, and Hashem created the world, and Hashem runs the world. Why does Shalom Bayis take over the Pirsumei Nisa of Chanukah? So the Matnat Chaim says very simply. So on the one hand, we would say, before the Matnat Chaim, because Chanukah is feeding from Shabbos, so obviously Shabbos is the same goal as Chanukah, so you light the Shabbos candles. But the Matnat Chaim says a little bit differently. The Pirsumei Nisa is about publicizing Hashem's name, and the Rambam says you would have Hashem's name erased for Shalom Bayis. If the Shabbos candles are about Shalom Bayis, so we prefer to have the Shalom Bayis, even if it means the Pirsumei Nisa, the publicizing the miracle is erased. The Shalom Bayis of Shabbos takes precedent, because what Hashem wants more than anything else is this peace. And this peace, as we are describing it, means this living with this understanding that everything has a balance, everything has a purpose. Pirsumei Nisa says, yes, God's running the world, but it's not enough just to see God running the world. You have to live that Hashem is running the world. That's Shalom Bayis. That's being able to live well with each other, being able to see that everything has a place, everything has a purpose, the dynamics can run smoothly. All the paths are pathways of peace. That's the ultimate goal of what Hashem wants in this world. And by the Rambam, perhaps, by the Rambam ending Hilchos Chanukah with this, he's teaching us, that's really the goal of Chanukah as well. And Baruch Hashem, we can light Shabbos candles and Chanukah candles. We're surrounded. We have Shabbos candles on the one side, Chanukah candles on the other. The tefillos are gewaltig. The feeling of Hashem running the world is gewaltig. But you know what it's teaching us as well, when we have both? That if I only had one, I'd choose Shalom Bayis. I choose being able to see that everything has to fit in its place, to be able to live with that sense of wholeness, that sense of tranquility, that sense of serenity. That is the goal of what Hashem wants. And the Rambam perhaps ends Hilchos Chanukah this way, because that's what the Hasidic Svarim, Sichot Chaskot brings down, is what the goal of Chanukah is about. Chanukah comes from the word chen, to find favor. The Chanukah is a time of shalom bayis as well. Chanukah is a time where we have Chanina, free gifts from Hashem that we ask, and even if we're not deserving, we find favor in Hashem's eyes. And it's a time that we find favor in each other's eyes. It's a time of tzedakah. It's a time to give charity to the poor. It's a time to daven for others. It's a time to be able to live the model of the Shalom Bayis that we have every Shabbos by our Chanukah Licht, to live in peace and harmony within ourselves, to live in peace and harmony within our family, within our community, and ultimately to be able to see with that Or HaGanuz, that light of clarity, to live in harmony and peace in the world, and to understand Ein Od Mevado, there's no one but Hashem. And when I look at those Chanukah candles and I really introspect, I understand that Hashem is running my world in the most perfect, balanced way. And that is the greatest Persumei Nisa, the publicizing of the miracle called life. And it's behooves me, lahalo, lahodo, to give thanks to Hashem for taking care of me, for taking care of this world, for enabling me to work on and to help me take my pieces and be able to form that golden goal of ultimate peace.